Hello, everybody. Welcome. We'll go ahead and bring the meeting to order.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Father, we thank you for life. We thank you for our freedoms. We pray that you would give guidance and direction to our city officials. Thank you for protecting us and giving us wisdom and direction, that you would guide their thoughts and give them wisdom as they move our city forward. Thank you for blessing our city. We pray that you would turn the hearts of man and keep us safe. Thank you for first responders and their families. I pray that you protect them daily, give them strength mentally and physically. Lord, may you pour your spirit out on this place. Lord, we thank you for blessing our city, blessing our government, our homes, our lives. Thank you for our city. In Christ's name, amen.
Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. City Attorney, we actually had no closed session today. Any agenda modifications, gentlemen? All right, the only thing I may have, it's not considered a modification, but just a matter of decorum. We have a HVAC issue here today. You may have noticed it's a little warm, so I would just invite any gentlemen who have a jacket on, if should you care to remove it for your comfort, please feel free to do so. We have one taker so far. Do I have two? Not yet. All right. We probably will eventually. All right. Item number 1 is a ceremonial presentation by Yuba-Sutter Transit. Floor is yours, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Harris, distinguished council members. My name is Matthew Mock. I've had the privilege of being the executive director of the Yuba-Sutter Transit Authority for almost exactly 11 months now. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening to provide you with an update on our ongoing efforts to improve transit service in the Bi-County area, particularly as envisioned in our next generation transit plan. That's our staff, by the way. No, I don't know who those folks are. Our next generation transit plan, or our next gen plan, was adopted by our board in May of 2023 and serves as our short range transit plan for services in the area. You can think of it as our 5-year business plan. Such plans are typically done about every 5 years and are required mechanisms for certain state and federal funding eligibility. And they do feed into regional transportation programming efforts. What was atypical about this time around in the development of the next gen plan were the circumstances leading up to the development of it, namely the devastating effects of the pandemic related shutdowns on transit ridership. Truthfully, ridership on our system had been declining slightly since a peak in 2015 where we had around 1.3 million boardings that year. But in the first full year of the pandemic, from late 2020 through early 2021, ridership dropped over 60%, almost immediately. So although ridership has grown almost 66%, cumulatively speaking, since then, we're still at about 2/3 of the ridership that we were before 2020. So that necessitated a full top to bottom assessment of the service and resulted in some wholesale recommendations for changes to our service over the next few years. I wanted to make a note that the Next Gen Transit Plan was a fiscally constrained plan. In other words, developed to be essentially cost neutral or implementable with foreseen funding sources. So not aspirational, in other words. So the goal here was an operational plan that delivered faster travel times, connections to previously underserved areas, better real-time information, improved local and regional access by serving new growing areas and connecting them with more dynamic, innovative travel solutions where both logical and feasible. Improved operating performance, reducing crosstown delays and speeding up routes and layover times in the current system. The analysis resulted in a series of recommendations for improvements to be implemented in phases over the next 3 to 4 years, and across all of the basic types of service that we provide. Given the audience, and I believe the reason you invited me here tonight, I'll be focusing today on the recommended enhancements to the local services, primarily our local fixed route services, referred to in the plan as our crosstown services, and also our demand response services, referred to in the plan as community services. So phase one, which we're coming up on now. We had a phase 0. We've completed it just about. Really was about ramp up to the service changes on the street, staffing changes, technology acquisitions. We did make some reductions to our commuter service that became effective late last year to free up some additional resources for new initiatives. So phase 1 is about implementation, beginning with local services within and connecting to Yuba City. Not mentioned on this slide, but the first big ticket item of that is streamlining of our Route 1. Our Route 1 is our trunk line of our local transit service. It runs from Yuba College over in Linda all the way over to Sam's Club in Yuba City. We have half-hourly service, bi-directional service on that route. Also loops around by the high school and then Walmart on Harder Parkway and back around. We'll be streamlining that route, and we'll reduce the crosstown travel time by about 20%. Not only does that make the trip faster across town, but it also allows us to continue to provide half-hourly service with one less bus as it happens. Then comes the replacement of routes 2 and 5, which are the 2 local fixed route services that service Yuba City primarily. And we're replacing that with a new on-demand service, or what is sometimes referred to as micro-transit, open to the general public. This is a service that's accessed by a phone app or by calling into dispatch, and rides are scheduled without a reservation. It depends on vehicle availability and response times. The service area that we're launching first in Yuba City will expand beyond where the fixed route actually services by quite a bit. I won't get into the details too much, but it kind of echoes and actually goes a little bit beyond where Dial-A-Ride currently serves. So that's a general public service that's reaching well out from where fixed route is currently. And then service is extended as well from 6:30 p.m. currently, when our fixed route ceases to operate, up until 8 p.m. on weekdays. So a later service as well as increased or expanded service area. And then as a part of that, because of the evening service there, we will be discontinuing what is currently a general public, sort of underutilized general public Dial-A-Ride service that, again, I say underutilized, just a handful of trips a day on that service, and we'll be discontinuing that in favor of this later local service. Apologize, I think in retrospect, this is maybe a little bit out of place, but getting back to the plan development, I don't want to linger on this too much. I'm getting late on my time, but lots of data went into this report. Lots of good analysis, system ridership, route effectiveness, travel pattern data, including GPS, available GPS data and location-based data, trip origins and destinations, peer reviews, all of that kind of stuff. The bottom line is that if fully implemented as recommended, the system-wide ridership is projected to increase by up to 45%, and the effective coverage area of the service increases by about 60%, at approximately the same operating cost when adjusted for inflation. So again, the details, it's a long and detailed plan. I encourage you to read into it. It's available on our website. I did bring a few hard copies of the executive summary if you'd like if anybody's interested in that, it's a good read. So also, I wanted to just reassure the council that this was not done in the dark. Public surveys, 2 rounds of community open houses, stakeholder interviews, direct system observations, multiple board workshops, and ongoing solicitation of public input throughout. I want to take the time to thank our board members for their participation, of course. One of the other public outreach efforts that we've stood up recently is our microtransit working group. This is a group of stakeholders within Yuba City. I see some representatives on that microtransit working group in the room today. Thank you to them. That's a small, again, working group of stakeholders, representatives from Freed Independent Living, the Senior Commission, the Senior Center, all getting together with our frontline staff and working through some of the details of the implementation of these services and how they might affect the public, resulted in some good recommendations for our board, and we're going to be carrying forward. With that, I want to sort of just touch on the next steps. This is an ongoing process. In a couple of days, we're going to meet with our board to discuss potential fare alternatives for these new services. And then also there's a public hearing that's already been set for the next board meeting on July 18th to really first take the serious public input on this plan. It was always envisioned that as this plan is implemented in its phases, it would come back to the board and to the public for further discussion. So nothing set in stone at this point beyond what we've done today or to date. Again, public hearing set for the 18th, talk about service changes, potential fares for the new system. Formal adoption of the phase 1 that I've gone through tonight will not be until the public has a few more chances to weigh in through late summer and the fall. I should mention that phase 1 is now scheduled for implementation around the first of the year. That's when the fixed routes would be replaced with that microtransit service for the general public. Of course, there'll be a big public education effort as we lead up to that rollout. We've secured some extra consultant services to help us with that marketing and outreach. And then, of course, there's a big technology aspect to this. So we are in the process of bringing on a vendor that will provide us with the software and the hardware for the vehicles that will run the system in the back in the app and allow people to easily access the service. So with that, again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm happy to answer any questions or try to answer any questions that you might have.
Good.
Okay. Through the mayor, thank you for the presentation. I am a willing participant of the senior commission meetings, and I think I've mentioned this to them, is it seems like we, at these meetings that I'm hearing from the feedback from those stakeholders and participants, that we kind of go from here to there and here to there. Have we landed on a final plan or something that looks like the final plan? I know you'd mentioned open hearings, but I guess I'm concerned that we started in one direction. It appears that we went in a different direction and then we pivoted again, and understand being nimble, but have you guys kind of landed on where you're going to go with this so that there's an ability to begin to educate and begin the transition?
Yeah, I would say except for more minor details. We know that the plan is to roll out this on-demand service, this dynamic service that will provide kind of corner-to-corner service in a confined area. We know how we can provide that, generally speaking. The exact boundaries have not necessarily been set. That's something we need to work through with the vendor. But then I think it's important to think that based on the real-world experience that we have with that, it's the first time for some of us deploying this kind of a microtransit or app-driven on-demand service here locally, although dial-a-ride is somewhat of a dial-a-ride, but this is a higher tech kind of version of that. There will be some real-world experience that we'll draw on as we do later phases. And the idea is that within about the next 18 months, assuming that all is going well, we will begin to commingle some of our dial-a-ride services potentially in this. We'll also roll out new zones for microtransit service in Marysville and then in Olivehurst and Linda as well. So it'll truly be kind of a cohesive system with the trunk line, frequent trunk line fixed route service, and these zonal on-demand trips serving both as a first mile, last mile connection to those crosstown routes, or to our commuters for that matter, and then circulating people sort of easily within those zones where, frankly, the majority of the trips we see from the data are happening, where most of the demand. I'm not sure that answers your question, but I think
so.
We do have the basic bones.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
And we are going to roll this out for
Once
at
we
least
go, we got to
year.
go, right? I mean, and then you figure out. I guess the other question, I know the other question I have is fares. I know this is a big issue especially for seniors who are on fixed. And have you landed on a fare schedule yet, or is that something that's still being contemplated?
We had a recommendation that was adopted as part of the original plan, again with the understanding that it would come back to the board for final approval later, closer to the implementation. But it did involve, for instance, foregoing monthly passes on our service in favor of just a daily cap and a monthly rolling cap that could only really be done with an electronic fare card, which we do have on our system. We do have that capability. Some of the initial feedback and actually some of the internal discussions with staff, we had some concerns about the fares. And we looked through some of the scenarios. It could mean some significant out-of-pocket increases to out-of-pocket expenses for our riders. Our fares have been really, really low. And it's a contributing factor to the wide usage of our local fixed routes. For those who are not familiar, folks who don't qualify for any sort of discount can get a monthly pass for $10 a month right now out of pocket to ride the local fixed route service for the entire calendar month. Folks who qualify for a discount by virtue of age or physical or mental challenge can get it for $5. Those are not the actual rates, but we keep these rates sort of subsidized with grant funding, and we've done so for many, many years. So what was proposed in the plan originally, under certain scenarios, that out-of-pocket expense for accessing the same local service could have gone up significantly. So that's why the board directed staff last month, after a discussion, to come back this month, and we'll be doing so in the next in 2 days at our board meeting to discuss an alternative that keeps fares a little bit lower out of pocket. And then the July 18th is when we will officially sort of begin to take public comment on that fare program. Bottom line is the one-way fares on the service are not likely to change. So $1.50 one way, 75 cents for persons who qualify for a discount by virtue of age or disability. And then we believe the right move at that point, and staff will be recommending to the board that they consider keeping monthly passes for use of the two services, both the microtransit and the fixed route. They won't necessarily be $10 and $5. Not necessarily realistic, but we'll continue to use grant funds to buy down the cost out of pocket. And I believe, I don't think I'll be speaking out of turn. The agenda has been published. We will be recommending a price that essentially keeps it at $10 for folks who qualify for a discount and $20. That would be for unlimited use of both the microtransit and the fixed route services for a calendar month.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate the question.
Through the mayor. Matt, thanks for being here tonight. We've talked about this because I know as Mark's heard and I've heard, there's been a lot of concern about is the service going away?
Right.
And I remember when we first got introduced to microtransit, it was more along the lines of think of it, and it's not quite the same, but it's like Uber for a bus, because you basically click, shoot, they come get you, and then they drop you off at a fixed point and going forward. I'm glad you brought up the how we're backfilling those fares, because they should be at the last meeting. Those fares should be more than double where they actually are for a monthly pass. And it's been grants through like FRACMed and some others that has brought it in our LTF funding that comes from the city. That's where our LTF goes to fund the local transit. So I'm glad you brought it up. We are aware of it. We're trying to keep the fares as low as possible as a board. Our chairman's 2 seats down from me here, and I'm sure he'll probably chime in as well. But we're trying to find that push point of giving better service, but yet keeping everything as affordable as possible. And our oldest daughter used transit for years when she was going to college. And this is going to be so much better because she would literally have to walk from home to a bus stop and then get in the system and go to where if this was available, she could literally almost dial a ride or Uber bus boom, pick up at the corner, and then off into the system. And she did that rain or shine or 110-degree heat. So this is going to be so much better, but we are going to try to keep the cost down. So thanks, Matt.
My pleasure.
To the mayor. Thanks for that presentation, Matt. 4 days ago, we had a major event in downtown Marysville. How is that affecting service, and going forward, how is that going to affect service?
It's affected us just about like it's affecting everybody else. That's the good news about a microtransit service, right? You can work around that stuff. We have been delayed. Our commuters, actually, interestingly enough, have been the most affected. So we've began to reroute around. We've put into place some bus bridges to bring folks back to location from the 99 side rather than the Highway 70 side. Of course, affects the performance of our Route 1s and our Route 1 and Route 4 in the city. So we've in some cases we've had to bypass, but we're not officially dropping any stops necessarily. We've had some situations where Caltrans has done some last minute street closures that did require us to divert around. But we're continuing to communicate with our passengers as best we can. We have social media feeds. We have lots of folks subscribed to our email alert system as well. And so we're making do as best we can, but I can't say it hasn't been difficult. And we've done, like I said, some additional services just to kind of get around it, to try to keep people's trip times to something reasonable.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Good. All right. Well, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your time. All right. All right. Number 2, appearance of interested citizens. You are welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Public comment is taken on action items appearing on the consent calendar, business items on the agenda when they are called. Public comment on any other items within the scope of the city's jurisdiction, including items not listed on the agenda, will be considered at this time. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and members of the public submitting written requests at least 24 hours prior to the meeting will be allotted 5 minutes to comment per speaker. Repetitive comments may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinions of the group. We have, excuse me, we have, let's see. John, you had, it says agenda item number 2, appearances, that's this one. So you want to comment on the consent calendar, an item on the consent calendar? Well, I've got one that says 2 and one that says 8. Or you have 2 items, 2 things to talk about on number 8. Okay, well, number 2 is just okay. So go ahead. Yep. And if anybody else has anything to say, please feel free to queue up.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the council. It's nice to be here again. One thing, last week or last time, June 4th, I believe, I listened to a presentation by a gentleman, I think Barry Broom. He went on and on and on for quite a long time, and I couldn't make heads and tails of what he was trying to provide to us. And thank you, Mr. Baumgarten, for your questions. He tried to bring it to, hey, what's in it for me? And another time, a couple years ago, I sat in a presentation that a vendor wanted to bring a hemp shop to the city. And the chamber was full of people. And they kept going on and on and on. You feel like you're being filibustered. And everyone is waiting for the presentation to end, but they kept, okay, well, this is how it is. How about you, Sharon? And they kept passing the ball back and forth. The reason I bring these up is the decisions that are made here and the folks that go for such a long time, and the citizens have only 3 minutes to make a response. I think that's unfair. Maybe the city would consider providing a time limit for certain vendors or their presentation. And I'm not talking about the gentleman that was here just before me. But for vendors, I don't think it's right for them to go on for hours, and it literally went out for like an hour and a half. I used to, when in my previous life as a construction engineer, we would put out contracts for 10, 15 million, 6 or 7 construction companies would attend, and they had a 15-minute, exactly 15-minute questions, answers, and any presentation they have. And then we would make a selection on that. So this is my request to please consider for the benefit of time and fairness to citizens that have only 3 minutes to make a response to a 2-hour presentation. And with that, I'm done. If there is any question.
You had one more thing about Bel Air, and you
Yes.
have 50 seconds.
No, wait a minute. That's 2.
Just kidding.
Okay, this thing happened to me a few months ago. I realized Bel Air parking lot is a private property, and there may be different rules governing that. I'm on Stabler, taking a right lane, going towards passing Starbucks, going towards UPS on the right lane. And there is another car coming in the same lane towards me. I flash my lights up, right, low, right, low. She, as it turns out later on. So I pull as far to the right as I can and I stop. Finally, she moves over and she looks at me and I say, why is she driving this way? So after further investigation, the stripes are all dashed white. The only place that you see yellow, which indicates opposing directions of traffic, is right at the intersection, at the entrance, or I will call it the gore. There is a dashed chevron in yellow, but the rest of it is all dashed white. And I think that can create a liability. It's a safety issue. Eventually, it hasn't happened to me before and hasn't happened since. But if anyone wants to talk to the owner of the property, I think that would be time well spent in terms of public safety. Did I make it in 20 seconds?
I think you did. Good job.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anybody else care to comment? No? Okay, we'll move on to.
Mayor,
Yes,
we have a written request.
I do.
Suk Sugira.
Do I have it in front of me?
Yes,
I've got Bijan's.
it's on your agenda.
Okay, I see now where it says written request. Is he here? Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time, council members. I was here before just to remind you guys of the issue, 665 Downey Street in Yuba City, solar installation issue on a halfplex that was encroaching onto the other roof. I am the real estate agent for the seller. We sold the property last year, but we had an issue with the lender approving the loan for the buyer. Because the solar, it's a halfplex, it's encroaching onto the roof of 665 Downey Street, should be completely on 675 Downey Street. To get the deal closed, the lender included some conditions. Fix the issue, get the solar panels installed on the correct roof, and give us a roof certification telling us that, hey, it's not going to be a leak from the correction. You know, you guys referred me to Doug Libby, helped me out, got things going. Then I believe they finished the project, got everything corrected, but I'm still not getting any kind of documentation on the project's been completed, it's been inspected. Not getting the roof cert. Doug replied back saying it's a third-party issue. We don't pay for roof certification from a third party. But with the way the process works with solar installation, solar company submits plans to the city, they approve the installation. So the city approved the installation onto the middle of the duplex when it should have been on one side. There are other homes on the same street which are also duplexes. Installation is done correctly. So whoever approved it at planning should have done their due diligence, pulled the address up, saw that it was a duplex. But that didn't happen. They corrected it, but I am not getting any kind of documentation that it's been completed so I can submit it to title company and they can see if the lender will be okay with it. But most likely they're going to want a roof certification. What I got was Doug saying that Mike Campos would get back to me. Mike Campos told me to contact the solar company. Didn't give me a contact, didn't give me a reference number. So I'm going to go back into the queue, because I've done this before, to where I'm going to sit on the 800 number, spend about an hour. They're going to tell me I'm not the owner, I'm not the city, we can't speak to you. And then further research today, I'm talking to the owners, maybe they have some kind of documentation for, for work completion. They don't have anything. They're an elderly couple. I spoke to the granddaughter. She informed me that the city and the solar company are trying to bill them for the correction that was either the solar company's fault or the city's fault, because so they just wanted solar. Then it falls into the solar company's hand and the city approving the permits. That's the whole permit process, right? So things are done correctly. So that's where I'm at. I need a roof certification so I can send it to title company so we can appease the lender and be done with this.
It looks to me like Ben would like to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we've checked in with staff. We definitely feel for the property owner, the purchase, the vendor. But there's a certain area when it goes into private property and liability where we drew the line. And so we're happy to work with the contractor, the inspectors. But when somebody submits as a plan that didn't have a property line, it was approved for how it was done. We worked with them to modify that with the resubmittal. We issued a permit. The inspectors went out, verified the work, that it was corrected, moved. We closed out the permit. We've done a final inspection that has been provided. As far as having an additional third party certify a roof, that is not part of the city's scope. And I've not coordinating with Doug. We're trying to do that respectfully and give them guidance so he's not spinning his wheels or wasting his time. But really, it's where we've worked with the individual. We definitely respect that we don't want to have this situation. We look out for it, but we can't know where a property line might be on every rooftop. And so there's responsibility with the solar company. We worked with them to help get it corrected and move it, but it's really stuck with this third party individual. And we've given clear communication that the city is not get a contract with a third-party vendor to provide that service. And so I'm happy to follow up with any written documentation or provide that permit, but that's kind of where we're at on the situation.
I think the rule of the day is definitely you two need to have a I'm not here to go back and forth, sir. I see you shaking your head no, and there's a disagreement, but what we'll do, this is not the time or place to go back and forth. Okay, so Ben, would you do me a favor and set up an appointment with this gentleman and you guys can have a conversation? Thank you. Anybody else? All right. We'll go on to consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items prior to the time that council votes on the motion unless members of the city council request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. Due to recusals, which we'll get to that in a second, items 11 through 13 will be voted on separately. Do we have any comments from the public on consent calendar items 3 through 10 and 14? I know we have one on number 8. So come on up, sir.
Through the mayor.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on.
There's an additional recusal. So when I vote tonight, since there is no other discussion on items 6 and 7, we have property that lies within 300 feet of that property. So I will not be voting on 6 or 7 when I vote for the consent calendar tonight.
And was it 6, 7, and was there something else too?
Yeah, and I'm on 12 as well. But you said that was going to be taken separately, correct?
Well, we did last time, Shannon. We did one vote, but we just said when we're saying yes or no, we're not talking about those that we're recusing from. Is that correct?
That is correct. On the consent calendar, you can designate which items you're recused from and then just vote up and down on the entire consent calendar except for the items that you're recused on.
Mentally excluding those ones.
I had number 12 because my residence life.
Now we got 12. So you have 3 recusals.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
All right. We're good there. And John, you have a comment on number 8.
Excuse me, Mayor, there are other council members that need to recuse themselves on items.
Yeah. Well, as soon as we're done with this, we'll go through that. But thank you. I think I'm even on that list. Go ahead.
Thank you again. Item 8, there is some information available about the 2025 or 2024 estimate of completion, but I think it's deficient without having a construction estimate. You have attachments that's showing some streets being rehabbed, and you're getting 1.8 million a year from AB1 funding, and it looks like we have 3.5 million in reserve that hasn't been used. So as a citizen, I would ask, well, I need to make it into a comment. I think I would have expected to see some more construction projects using the $3.5 million that's sitting there. And I would like to see construction estimate with the columns that are showing the project description, project location, estimated useful life, and timeline. And paragraph 8, with starting the resolution from the top, says, where's the funding from SB1 will help the city maintain and rehabilitate, and goes on. And the last line of that paragraph, that throughout the city this year and hundreds of similar projects, that's either over-explaining or too vague. I propose taking out the hundreds of similar projects because you don't know what that really means, and it can come back to get you or get everyone later on. What does 100 similar projects mean? So that's my proposal and request. Let's see.
That's good, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else care to comment? All right. So we have recusals for 11, 12, and 13. I know I need to recuse myself from item number 13, so I will not be voting on that tonight. Anybody else? You're on 11 and 13 according to my notes. Yeah. 11, 13. Anybody else? According to my script here, it's 11.
You need to recuse yourself from 11.
Please excuse me from item 11.
Okay, so we have Mr. Boomgarden from 11, Mr. Pasquale from 11 as well, Vice Mayor Shaw from 12, 6, and 7, and myself and Councilmember Pasquale from 13. Okay.
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
And just to clarify for the record, the recusals are based upon owning property within the areas affected by these particular items.
Yes. All right. All that having been clear as mud, we have a motion.
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
I move to approve consent counter items 3 through 14.
Second, with recusals.
Second with recusal. So we have motion to approve consent calendar items 3 through 14 with recusals as just previously stated due to property ownership in the affected areas. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? We're good. All right. Consent calendar is approved. Now we move on to item number 15. Presentation by Pioneer Community Energy.
Thanks for having us here tonight, and my apologies that I'm talking about electricity on the night that the air conditioning isn't working, but I swear I didn't plan that. And I didn't take your offer on the jacket, but I did get rid of the ties. So next slide, please. So I just want to introduce our team here tonight. We have Gina Stassi-Venacore, Director of Communications, Lisa DeLaby, you'll also be hearing from, Community Outreach Manager, and Jake Trumbull is our newest employee. I didn't give him any slides tonight because he just started, but he's willing to help with the HVAC. And I also want to talk about our board chair, who's a council member from City of Auburn. Would love to have been here tonight. Happened to be, it's her wedding anniversary, but she sends her regrets and looks forward to talking with you all another time. So next slide, please. So just to lower the anxiety of what is this about, you're not joining Pioneer Community Energy tonight. What we're doing is talking about, at the end of this presentation, the action item we're looking at is to partake in an impact assessment study that would be shared between Sutter County, which has already said yes, and the City of Live Oak, which has already said yes. The maximum cost for all three to join this would be $15,000, and our board, which supports expansion with like-minded communities, is willing to fund the other half of the impact assessment study. So max is $15,000 to be shared amongst the three of you. And what that does, and we'll know the results around late August, would be we look at projected revenues at time of launch compared to the cost to serve the new load. And if it's positive, that means that the JPA isn't subsidizing new members, or current ratepayers are not subsidizing new members. It makes the JPA stronger. It also means that you can then partake in the same benefits as everyone else, so it makes sense. If the numbers are not positive, then it's something that we would pause and relook at it at another time. So just a very quick overview of what is a CCA. So you're not serial number one. There's already about 25 CCAs in the state, serving more than 200 communities. How this really all started was, for some of you may remember the craziness of the early 2000s with the energy crisis, when California opened up the market, and it didn't go well. But out of that, legislation happened that said, how can local communities be able to procure energy on behalf of their communities and at least provide a little competition to the investor-owned utilities? And so that started in 2002. The first CCA then, our Community Choice Aggregator, launched in 2010 up in Marin County. And then in the mid-2010s, many CCAs started to launch. It became a real revolution. But when you look at the map, from Eureka down to San Diego, everyone's represented with a CCA. But you look at in our region, they're not, or in the middle of the state. So I'm really proud of our board and the staff to work with folks here in our region, because otherwise we've kind of been left out of this. And so we're really proud to be here tonight. Next slide, please. How does a CCA work? So what you're going to do is you're not going to be forming your own utility. So you're not taking over the transmission and distribution system. Just to kind of give you some numbers out there, City of Rockland, which is one of our members, looked at procuring their own, the transmission and distribution system from PG&E. Now, first of all, PG&E is not probably going to sell it, but they did their study to look at it. It would be about $500 million to purchase a system, plus all the infrastructure in place to maintain it. Here, it gets you into the game for about 40% of the bill, on the generation side of the bill, for a maximum risk of $15,000. So that's where we're not going to be replacing PG&E as far as your customer service goes if you have an outage, but we are going to be then the electrons on the system and provide the benefits associated with that. So next slide, please. I won't cover all these bubbles, but the top ones would be, about savings. So since we've launched in 2018, we have saved, at the end of this year, we'll have saved our ratepayers about $124 million. 92% of our budget is devoted to power supplies. We have very little overhead. We keep it very lean, very nimble. And our board has made a priority that ratepayer savings is number one issue. It's also about local control. So an example of this would be, you're sitting on our board, you're making decisions about the rates, about the projects, about the programs, and our board has been very specific about the importance of biomass and looking at local energy procurement that creates jobs as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few slides, as well as taking control of your energy future. This is right from our, next slide, please. This is right from our strategic plan, our mission and vision statement, and won't read that out, but the focus is on local. It's about community partner. And just want to also emphasize for you and the public that we are not for profit, and you sit on our board. Our ratepayers are our shareholders. Next slide, please. This is just a snapshot of our service territory. As I mentioned, we are looking at Sutter County as well as some other members this year for joining us. We have about 170,000 meters, but we serve a population close to 1 million. And also want to emphasize, we do not compete with other public power. So for instance, Roseville Electric is public power. Truckee has their own utility. That's public power. That wouldn't be a place where we would go to compete. The legislation was specific to compete with the investor-owned utility territory, being PG&E and ARCRES. And the next slide is governance. So I mentioned about sitting on our board. So we have currently 11 members on our board. Each one is an elected official from member agency. So one of you would be eventually on our board, and you would decide who that is. There's no term limits. And then also it's one member, one vote. So it's not based on percentage of load. So there's not going to be a situation where you're going to have two members team up and kind of force an agenda. It's one member, one vote. So everyone is equally represented. And that's been well received by some of the smaller cities that we have. And I think with that, I'm going to hand this off to, actually one more slide would be, this is on the biomass. So just to give you an example of what we're doing here, Grass Valley has a recent member that joined us. They have some land, they've got the wood waste, trying to figure out how to get a biomass plant there. It made sense. So our role becomes, we become the technical advisor in this case. We issued an RFP and got responses. We then negotiate with that power supplier. We'll eventually sign a power purchase agreement. And then that power supplier, because they have a power purchase agreement, can then go ahead and get financing. And we're looking forward to closing that deal in the next 2-3 months. So that's an example where the biomass being in our territory, it's important to us. The board is, we talked about wildfire risk, and it's certainly hit our region. And that's been a priority. But we also look at other areas. So for instance, first thing we did with El Dorado County when we went there is sign a $37 million contract with El Dorado Irrigation District. We do several $1 million of business with Placer County Water Agency. So we would do the same thing here where there's a local option that makes economic sense. That's what we would want to do. And now I think it's a good place for me to hand this off to Lisa DeLaby. Thanks.
Thank you, Don. I'm just going to briefly touch on the programs. So enrollment in any program a customer has with PG&E, whether it's CARE, FARA, or medical baseline, that's going to carry over to Pioneer. So that's a top question that we get asked. In addition to the PG&E programs, however, Pioneer offers additional local programs that are focused on saving customers money. Our customers have a voice in local programs, and it's based on input from our from our Community Advisory Committee. The committee meets every other month, and they prioritize programs that they'd like to see offered. And as Dawn mentioned, we are allocating $2 million a year on programs. Some additional Pioneer-specific programs that we offer include an online solar marketplace where our customers can get guided through that crazy maze of solar, and they can decide and choose which solar suits them best. And they get 3 bids from different solar customers. So it's a great program. We also offer Grid Gen, a $0 lease program for residents to pair their solar and battery storage, and it provides stability to rates and resiliency to grid outages. Greenlight is a subsidized low-cost LED lighting, and it's available through local retailers in our service area. We also just launched an HVAC tune-up rebate, and basically allows our customers to get their HVAC tuned up, and then they can receive a $75 tune-up rebate. And that's a check that they'll receive in the mail just by giving us the receipt that they had this work done. We also are going to be offering some demand-side program management programs coming soon, so that rewards customers who lower their energy usage. And I'm Pioneer's Community Outreach Manager, and I just want to let you know we are committed to being a community partner in the territories that we serve. We're actively involved with RCRC, the Rural County Representatives of California, to help identify potential biomass projects that lead to economic development. We also participate in member agencies, Chamber of Commerce committees, and we sponsor a lot of local events. And in addition to recently co-sponsoring a League of Cities divisional event, we also sponsor events such as the Lincoln Potters baseball team, Sierra Nevada Gala, and we also sponsor State of the City events as well. We also partner with the California Biomass Energy Alliance and the Bioenergy Association of California, along with working with economic development groups to help with business relocation with our Green 100 product, which is 100% renewable. As Dawn mentioned, we believe in community investment, and this slide just illustrates a few of the ways that Pioneer really does reinvest in our communities that we serve. We use local vendors, we offer local programs, we sponsor local events, and we really work to offer and create local power purchase agreements so that those funds stay local and create jobs. So as Dawn mentioned, we've saved customers $126 million since 2018 through the end of this year. We also have worked with El Dorado Irrigation District on a 10-year power purchase agreement totaling $37 million. He also mentioned we've allocated and budgeted $15 million to support local biomass and small hydro projects in our territories, and we would intend to do that and really get the word out here. We've also worked with the Placer County Water Agency, as Dawn mentioned, on energy and resource adequacy purchases totaling over $10 million. And we've budgeted that $2 million for local programs. And we've also worked to procure $1.2 million in renewable energy credits from Sierra Pacific Industries. Pioneer offers two rate products. We offer our standard product, and we also offer Green 100, which is 100% renewable energy. It's still less expensive than PG&E, and even our standard rate plan has a higher concentration of renewable energy than PG&E. Recently, the cities of Auburn, Grass Valley, and Nevada City have opted up to our Green 100 to help them meet their climate action goals. So it's been very effective, and I wanted to keep it brief for you, but now I'm going to turn it over to Gina Stassi-Vanacore, who is our Director of Public Affairs, Marketing, and Programs. Thank you.
Good evening. As Dawn mentioned, we are not here to ask you to join Pioneer tonight. What we are looking for is direction from the council on conducting the impact assessment study. In between now and when service would launch, there are several steps, and this timeline helps familiarize you with what would be involved. If you turn your attention to line 3, that's where we are tonight. But I would like to acknowledge and thank the city manager and her staff for the work that has come before tonight to do a fair amount of research, compile information, and get us to this point. An impact assessment study, as you've been told, really helps determine the financial feasibility of having the city join RJPA for both the city and for Pioneer. If that is conducted, we anticipate that the findings would be back in fall, and we would come back to you, share the findings, and really help explain to you what that means, both in terms of timing and cost. After that, if Yuba City votes to join Pioneer, we go back to our member agencies. They also have to join to approve, or they also have to vote to approve the expansion. assuming all of that happens and our JPA is amended, we would submit a plan to the California Public Utilities Commission. They have until about the end of March to either approve or deny that plan. And then at that point, we would come back to the city of Yuba City again. At that point, there's still one more opportunity for you to change your mind in case you decide not to join Pioneer. But of course, we hope you would. And then assuming all is going forward, we would begin procuring power for the city of Yuba City. The impact assessment study will tell us a little bit more about the optimal timing for service launch. At this point, we anticipate that it would be either late 2026 or more likely early 2027. So next slide, please. In between the time that you vote to join Pioneer and service launch, we would work with the city to develop partnerships and really work to educate your constituents, both residential and business, about what to expect. We know this is complicated. We have a good sense of what the biggest questions are. We would, work in all different mediums. We would probably run advertising. We do mailers. We do town halls, speak to Rotaries, go to civic and fraternal organizations, because part of what we want to do is be a part of the communities that we serve. And we don't just say it, we actually do it. So again, what we are looking for tonight from the council is direction on commissioning the impact assessment study. As Lisa mentioned, the Sutter County and the city of Live Oak will also be doing part of the assessment study. It is $30,000 total, of which Pioneer pays 50%. And there's no impact to your general fund by joining Pioneer. With that, we can open it up to questions.
Sir?
Mayor?
Sure.
You say there's 126 million over a secure period of time. Is that correct? How many households did you say you serve?
There are 170 meters, and that serves a population of about 1 million.
So okay.
Some meters have.
So you're saving people. I'm trying to do the number here per household is what I'm trying to work towards. Do you have that?
That's about $200
a year. Okay, great. All right, thank you. You answered my question.
Through the mayor. Thank you for that presentation. So walk me through this. It's some further council meeting. If we decide to go with you folks, it's as simple as just flicking a switch, or are you physically going on to properties of the public in Yuba City?
We are not.
Okay. Going on. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Why would thank you for the presentation, by the way. And I also watched your one to the county, so I have a couple of questions from that one. Why would PG&E say we shouldn't do this?
By law, they can't. Oh, this was really created through legislation. I'll tell you some of the history of when this first launched in Marin. It got pretty nasty between PG&E and Marin, and very aggressive out of that. And from that, CPUC put together some rules as a sort of a code of conduct. I look at it this way, that you're offering your folks a choice. So you're not necessarily saying you have to go with PG&E. You're offering them a choice. We feel very confident in what we do, and in looking at our budgets, that we're always going to be cost competitive, and we keep the rates stable. We change them at most once per year, but to answer your question directly, PG&E by law couldn't really come up to you and say you can't do this.
So the next question then is, the PUC would be regulating the transmission and the distribution costs. Is that correct?
Well, it's still PG&E's system. So right. Yes, they would be regulating those rates. That's correct, sir.
So, and this was a question, I had a presentation with a community interested citizen and supervisors Baines and Flores. And the question was, okay, does PG&E try to come back at us through the transmission and the distribution costs to make up the cost of the electricity now that's being supplied by Pioneer?
That's a great question. You would think if I've lost this source of revenue, I'm just going to double down on
right.
That's a great question. So they can. So first of all, except for their generation equipment, they're not making a rate of return on the generation portion of the bill. When they're out there purchasing fuel and purchase power, they're not allowed to make a profit on that. So then to go ahead and say whatever revenues I'm not getting from generation, throw them into transmission and distribution, violates every sort of cost of service law that there is. It would be, in my opinion, impossible for them to prove that through the CPUC to recover those costs. So it's a very good question. It's just that it would not be able to fly. There's no way they could justify generation costs that they're losing and putting them then into transmission distribution.
And could you spend a little time on talking to, I mean, there's a lot of solar panels on top of roofs in Yuba City. Can you expand just a little bit about how that impacts those of us who have a solar system and, own those systems? And I mean, how's that reimbursement all work?
So short answer is you're better off. Right now, we currently have 40,000 solar customers in our territory. So we have a high percentage of solars in our system, actually much more than most of the CCAs, even on the coast. And in your case, if you're a net generator, you would receive a 0.5 cent premium at the end of the year with Pioneer for your net generation. And if you're a net consumer, then you're enjoying the same discount rate that everyone else is. So it's a win either way. And that would be probably the group that would be the most aggressive about this program, because they really do watch their bill very closely. And the fact that we've kept 40,000 of them tells me that we're doing it right.
Speaking of the bill, you showed it at the Sutter County meeting, for the benefit of our viewing audience and those here. Is it possible to show that just to see what the bill would look like?
Great, and thank you for pulling that up. So this would be just a snapshot. The bill is very long and complicated, as you know, but how it would look is you're going to have, so we're not sending out a separate bill with Pioneer Community Energy. You're going to have one bill, and again, PG&E is required to do it this way. And you're going to see the Pioneer Community Energy generation charges. So then you pay the bill, and then the portion that belongs to Pioneer is transferred from PG&E into our account.
Final question. You've been great on all these so far. You said that we would have to be approved by your other member entities. Why would they say no?
They never have. So what we do is we do our homework ahead of time to say, are we looking at like-minded communities? And that's the reason, for instance, at the Sutter County, we had our board chair there. She would have been here tonight. If I were to go out there and recruit, for instance, looking at, I'm not picking on Berkeley, this is just an example, but Berkeley wouldn't be a great fit because they're looking at, they're not maybe so much concerned about cost as much as green.
Green, right.
And we're not. So we do offer a Green 100 product, but our default product is going to follow the state minimum for the most part to keep our costs low. This is what really adds up to the savings. So when we're out there looking at new communities, we want to vet that out too, to make sure that I'm not just introducing conflict to the board. So we're doing that homework ahead of time. And by the time it's going to a vote to amend the JPA, we've done that.
I said that was the final question, but I did have one more, sorry. As it relates to the competition, I mean, I know that we've had discussions with CCAs in neighboring jurisdictions who have declined to include us. Would we expect that there would be another one of you all coming to us, or are you what we have?
So we would be what you have as far as when you join us. Now, if you wanted to back out of the JPA at another time to join a CCA, it can happen. It's never, I don't know of anyone that's done that. But if you decide to move forward with us, then you would become part of our defined service territory.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
And the air's back on, so if you got some more questions, go for it.
You kept your jacket on. That was impressive.
I'm not as strong as the city attorney. He kept his tie on.
Through the mayor. Thanks for being here tonight. Just a couple more questions around solar and whatnot. There's some of us that's had solar for a very long time. So we're NIM 1, NIM 2, and now they're NIM 3. And we know the differences under PG&E's current stronghold they have of being in the different levels. If someone has solar and changes over to Pioneer, is that going to affect any of that? Because like NIM 1 and NIM 2 are grandfathered in. So that would not change anything there.
Absolutely not. So as you mentioned, every version of NIM gets worse, but it wouldn't be like you joined Pioneer and now you're automatically put into NIM 3. Whatever you are right now, that's where you are. No impact.
Okay. Pretty much already know the answer to this, but I just want to be clear for our citizens of the city. If we were to partner with Pioneer, we're still going to be subject to I'm just going to call it the nonsense that we have to deal with every time with rolling brownouts and everything else, because you don't have any control over that. So if PG&E does a brownout throughout the city, it doesn't matter what carrier are there, the transmission lines, they're shutting them down, correct?
That is correct. So we've done through our trade association of CalCCA, which is all the CCAs, have done efforts on the legislative side and the regulatory side to put pressure and have some oversight into the PSPS program, for instance, is an example of that, where we want to at least have some oversight on it. But if they decide to shut off the power, there's really nothing we can do about that. We do. Lisa brought up, like, for instance, on the program slide, where we're looking at a product that for a zero down lease, you can have a solar plus storage or a battery in place that could keep the power on for folks in those instances that we're very excited about rolling out here by mid-July. But in aggregate, no, we're not controlling the lines.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment on this item? All right, we can come back for a motion to written down.
Oh, through the mayor.
Sir.
I move to authorize the city manager to jointly commission an impact assessment study to determine the financial feasibility and timing of the city joining Pioneer Community Energy's joint exercise of powers agreement in conjunction with Sutter County.
Second.
The first and the second to approve the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed is none. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Look forward to working with you.
Moving on to the next step. Move on to number 16, adoption of the City of Yuba City's fiscal year 24-25 operating and capital budgets and fiscal year 24-25 appropriations limits. Deanna. I'm the money people. Attic pause.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, we are presenting you with a high-level overview of the fiscal year 24-25 operating budget for the general fund and a summary of the enterprise funds. Joining me is Deanna Pope, accounting manager. I'd also like to recognize Amarjeet Kaur, analyst who both are responsible for coordinating, stewarding, and building this budget. For more on the capital budget, I would refer everybody back to the June 4th meeting where it was covered in depth. Here's a slide that just basically shows the Yuba City budget allocations in the general fund. And you can see that 62% is public safety, which supports council's priorities. Added another priority, infrastructure and public works. And that brings us to about 74% of the general fund budget. We are expecting nearly a $2.7 million surplus once we close the books in 23-24. However, this is not an operating surplus per se, but rather unused reserves transferred into the general fund in July of 2023. So those reserves will go on to help close budget deficits in the future. We are experiencing, just like most every household, probably rising cost of goods. Every household, city, local government across the country. Rising costs do include, the big one is really insurance. This is an index from 2014-15 where I'm tracking the percentage of increase across that 10-year period. You can see lots of increases there. I do include inflation just as an index. So many of the increases are outpacing the percentage of inflation for that same period. The budget process is lengthy, to say the least. My team starts around January, and after this budget is adopted, then we still have the publishing of the budget remaining. So it's quite a lengthy process. But the council, through the ad hoc budget committee and department heads, are very involved, as is the city manager and my staff. Speaking of a budget ad hoc committee, this year it was staffed by Mayor Harris and Councilmember Pasquale, and this is I believe, the 6th year of using a budget ad hoc. And the committee met with each department to hear budget needs and deliberated over a few days to come up with a recommended budget. As we get into the budget detail, we will be drawing on reserves on this recommended budget. When the reserves are intended to come from the budget stabilization reserve, about $5.5 million. The city does have adequate reserves at the moment, about $30 million before we use any to close any deficits. So you can see that we keep just under $8 million in a healthy cities reserve, which is by policy 15%. In this budget, as we recommend not bringing that to 15% necessarily without, we will bring it to 15%, but we'll move monies from recommending moving monies from another reserve, from the general fund CIP. And that gets us to the general fund. And at this point, I'm going to have Deanna Pope continue.
Good evening. This shows graphically the changes in total general fund revenues over time. There are 10 years of actual historical results, the fiscal year 23-24 projected, and the fiscal year 24-25 proposed budgets. These figures do include transfers in from other funds. Here, I'm drawing your attention to the largest revenue changes proposed for fiscal year 24-25. This is a similar slide for general fund expenditures, including actual results for 10 years, along with the fiscal year 23 budget, fiscal year 24 projected, and fiscal year 25 proposed. This is broken down for each year into the categories of salaries and benefits and MS&S, materials, services, and supplies. The next two slides will provide a list of the largest general fund expenditure changes from the 23-24 budget to the 24-25 budget. And this is the second slide. Pension. This represents the cost for PERS retirement as a percent of every dollar of payroll. Safety is in red and miscellaneous is in blue. This is a blended composite rate of all the tiers, including the UAL payment, and is based on CalPERS payroll cost estimates. This is only the employer portion, and it doesn't include the portion paid by our employees. These projected rates are based on the actuarial reports as of 6/30/2022 put out by CalPERS in July of 2023. Finance will update this information when new actuarial reports are received. Rising costs are outpacing revenues, producing a declining debt coverage ratio. Another way to look at it is available water fund cash reserves is declining as operating expenses outpaces revenue. Declining net revenues has put more pressure on the debt coverage. The fiscal year 24-25 wastewater fund revenue budget is showing slightly decreasing revenues, increasing expenditures, and a declining debt service ratio. This is a similar slide as what you saw for water, but shows a very large spike on CIP for the wastewater plant improvements and increase in cash due to bond proceeds. The departments presented identified needs to your budget ad hoc committee for capital acquisition requests. This is a summary of items requested as part of the capital acquisitions requested by general fund departments. This is a summary of vehicles requested as part of the capital acquisitions requested by departments. This is a summary of equipment requested as part of the capital acquisition required for the continued health of the city's technology infrastructure. These items are purchased from the Technology Replacement Fund, which relies on transfers from all divisions. Personnel count changes. This slide identifies the 3 personnel requests from departments. Additionally, the code enforcement officer and development liaison will go from limited term positions to full-time. Community contributions. This slide is dedicated to the community contributions for the fiscal year 24-25. Operating budget wrap-up. The recommendations are to make ADP for general fund portion from the 115 plan. Only do so if the utility fund's debt coverage ratio stays at or above 1.2. Use UAL prepayment savings to make an ADP. Commit remaining budget stabilization reserves to close the deficit rather than using other discretionary funds or making permanent cuts. Fund the Healthy Cities Reserve at 15% by transferring from the unallocated general fund CIP. Other options include don't make the ADP, the first 2 bullet points, and utilize the funds or other purposes. Use discretionary funds to pay some general fund costs instead of budget stabilization reserves. Staff can look to bond debt where possible to free up cash long-term to pay down unfunded liabilities. Do not fund Healthy Cities Reserve at 15% and leave general fund CIP for future projects. The resolutions we're proposing is adopt a resolution approving the proposed fiscal year 24-25 operating budget, adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year 24-25 capital improvement program, and adopt a resolution approving the city's appropriations limit for fiscal year 24-25. Any questions or comments?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right.
Yeah,
if you have,
Mayor. Seeing that, I mean, this is bare bones. This is bare bones budget. It's clear that it's a bare bone budget. I know in the ad hoc committee, I made the comment, gentlemen, that this budget is pretty close to what Yuba Community College District has. We serve 70,000 people. Yuba Community College touches the lives of maybe 17,000 people. So I will go to task with anyone that we are not bare bones. This is bare bones. So with that comment, I relinquish to someone else.
Agreed.
So I've labored hard on this one. And first, let me say that I in no way I'm in conflict with the work of the ad hoc committee. I'm certainly not in no way in conflict with the work of Spencer or Deanna or Amarjeet or the rest of the staff, department heads. However, I cannot support this budget. And the reason is as we embrace or embark on this journey of asking our residents to consider taxing themselves. We can call it a revenue measure. We can call it a tax. It's imperative to me and something that I feel very, very important to me that we spend wisely. And I'm not suggesting that we don't spend wisely, because I know I've been a active participant in the Budget Ad Hoc Committee. And again, I respect consensus, and I respect the fact that I may be in the minority here. But there are some things contained within this budget that I would not spend money on personally, nor would I have spent that money on any business that I had the opportunity or privilege of running. I need to be true to myself. And I know others on this council at different times have made that claim as well, is that, hey, look, I get it. I'm not suggesting that this budget is frivolous by any matters, but it does contain some things that I feel are highly, highly questionable. And I articulated those and communicated those at the last meeting. I was apparently either confused, the writer for the territorial dispatch, or perhaps I misspoke, but there was a comment printed that I was somehow not in support of the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, SACOG. That is the furthest from the truth. I see the return on our investment from SACOG, and I believe in that organization. And I will be following up with the territorial dispatch to make sure that they understand that. It's just important for me that as we stand in front of our constituents, I stand in front of our constituents, they absolutely understand that I have been entrusted with them, by them, to spend their money wisely. And when I see things that I just fundamentally do not agree with, then I have to take this particular action. I'll be voting no on the budget, but I really, really want to make sure that my colleagues here understand that I understand and respect consensus. And to Spencer, Deanna, Amarjeet, and the staff, this is no personal reflection on any of the work that you have done this year or in previous years. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any comment from the public? No, yeah, just.
Thank you. One of the graphs you showed inflation as a red line, and then a whole bunch of other items. As when I'm looking at it, I wondered if any or many of those other items are what constitutes inflation. It looks like you're showing inflation and then a whole bunch of other, such as labor and other costs. Is there an opportunity to see that slide? Maybe you can explain.
I don't mind if you don't. I'm not sure what slide it is, but if it's a quick and easy question, we chatted before about this is comment period. But if it's a quick and easy question, explain the definition of a red line. I don't have a problem with that.
Right. The red line, you have inflation. And then you have gas and electric going up in price. Fuel is going up. Labor. It seems to me many of those items that you're showing constitutes inflation. That's what inflation is.
I would say
that inflation line.
I would say the general rate of inflation nationwide would be a general number, the red line. The numbers, the lines that are above that have exceeded more than inflation in general. So if we have inflation goes up X percent, these went up higher percent. So that graph is intended to demonstrate that basically costs are rising.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome. Is that correct?
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would add that the timing of a lot of these increases coincided more with insurance, for instance, national disaster, which we've experienced in Northern California, which contributed. We've also have supply chain issues that were a result of the global pandemic. And then I would argue that subsequently the dumping of $6 trillion into the economy later was a big impact on inflation. So you can't say, I don't think you could separate all of these, but there were definitely much more economic issues that were involved.
A lot of reasons behind those figures right there. Okay, very good. Any other comment from the public? All right, we'll bring it back to council for action.
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
Before we go to action, I'd like to make a couple of comments here.
All right.
First of all, to my colleague, I really respect you, Mark. Really do. You're my colleague, and it takes a lot of tenacity and guts to stand your ground. I've been there. But when I look at the budget, what we're doing this year, I look at it not only as a single year where we're at, as my colleague on the other end said, it's a tight budget. But this is the 6th year we've done this. And Mark, you've been an integral part of that over the years. We have managed this city along with our city team and our finance and our city manager to where we're not in a situation that I'm seeing other cities. I mean, if you just look, Sutter County is upside down. Sacramento County is upside down. City of Sacramento is upside down, and there are hundreds, not Sutter County, but Sacramento, hundreds of millions of dollars upside down. And I just want to commend the council and the city staff before we go forward with 5 years of a good job done, because we really dug in, and we can't overlook that. We made it through some of the tough times. Is it pretty and optimal? Yeah, he's joking, he's laughing, and it's not. I mean, we identified last year, if we really wanted to do everything that we need to do for our residents, I don't remember off the top of my head, but somewhere between $400 and $500 million that we would need to do all the things that the department heads brought forward. We don't have it. So, I fully respect you, and I understand exactly where you're coming from, but I think we got to take a look at the 5 years leading into this, and pardon the French, but we've done a hell of a job. And you've been a part of that. So I want to say thank you for that. And I appreciate your forthcoming tonight. So I just wanted to say that. But on that, we've got a job to do. And it is not optimal. And Spencer, thank you to you and your team, because we've asked you to be wizards and do things, and you guys have put it together. So I just want to say thank you to you and your team. So with that, I would go ahead and move that we adopt a resolution approving the proposed fiscal year 24-25 operating budget, adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year 24-25 CIP. Project summaries by funding source are attached to the resolution for your reference. And C, adopt a resolution approving the city's appropriations limit for the fiscal year 24-25.
Second. Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
I would like to vote singularly on item A and then B and C. Friendly amendment.
Sure.
That's fine.
Okay.
Roll call. Yep.
So we can do a roll call for A and then B and C.
Yep.
All right. So item A, we have a first from Vice Mayor Shaw, correct? Second from Councilmember Pasquale. And then we have Councilmember Kirchner
Yes.
and Councilmember Baumgarten
No.
and Mayor Harris.
Yes.
Okay, so item B.
I'm sorry. Did we get Councilmember Shaw? Did I miss that one?
She just took it because I made the motion. I'm a yes, and Pasquale is a yes because he seconded. So
Got it. Okay, just so we're clear for the record, we're assuming you're voting for your own motion. Okay, thank you.
Now we can run through the roll call for B and C.
Item B, Councilmember Baumgarten,
Yes.
Councilmember Kirchner,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasquale,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shaw,
yes.
Mayor Harris.
Yes.
Item C, Councilmember Baumgarten,
Yes.
Councilmember Kirchner,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasquale,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shaw,
Yes.
and Mayor Harris.
Yes. All right, so we got that.
Mayor, before we go on, can I just note that this is Spencer Morrison's last adopted budget before he retires at the end of the year. And I just want to say thank you for all of his work on this budget. And I want to say happy birthday to Spencer. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. All right, number 20, downtown noise ordinance. Where's Doug? That says Doug anyway.
Through the mayor.
Did I
are we on
skip a
item
page?
number 17.
Forgive me, I'm sorry.
No worries. Sometimes the pages.
Few pages. That's why Doug wasn't getting up looking at me like I have three eyes. Number 17, Sole Source and Spencer. That's why he's still there. One of these days I'll wake up.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening again.
And members of the council, tonight I bring before you this my very last citywide sole source and professional services purchases staff report for fiscal years 24-25. I just want to first and foremost say this is not an $8.75 million project or proposal. That would be the culmination of all of these agreements and anticipated dollars that could be potentially spent, but we don't always spend the entire amount of every agreement or for every one of these items. It is intended, the staff report is intended to streamline the process. If we did not include all these sole source and professional services agreements that are mostly ongoing in the staff report, then we'd be bringing a great volume of staff reports to you over the coming fiscal year in these meetings. And we just really intend to put together information that will inform and create awareness. And again, these are not appropriations. That's a separate process. A separate process that will come before council for approval. Again, these are future purchases with a high likelihood that invoices with a vendor will total more than $100,000 a year, which just happens to be your city manager's purchasing authority. And all vendors requiring a formal bid this year will be brought before council. These are all the items that we presented in the list in the staff report have that in common. How do they get on the list? These are sole source and professional services agreements. Typically, they are the only known provider or the only responsive bidder or responsive vendor or have specialized knowledge or expertise. There could be vendors that are in, there could be HVAC vendors that could be less expensive that are well outside their response distance to Yuba City, but we know who our HVAC vendors are. For instance, that's probably a bad example because we do have to go out to bid for HVAC for several years. But when we have multi-year contracts, we are including a lot of those vendors in the staff report, just to remind you that this is who we're doing business with. Multi-year agreements. Another example would be landscape contracts. So we are including the multi-year agreements and then existing systems. So while we do plan to turn over our financial system, our ERP is what it's called, we will be bringing that a proposal to a future meeting. But that's not something that we can just go out to bid for every 2 or 3 years, like landscape. So those types of vendors are also on this report. So I did include a full list of all the vendors in the staff report. as an addendum. So if you have any questions for myself or for any of the department heads that might be holding some of those contracts in this room, that was a great time.
Yes, it is. Questions? No? All right. Public comment on that? Hello, a motion, please.
Move to accept number 17, citywide sole source of professional services purchases. Adopt a resolution pre-authorizing the city manager or designees to enter into a citywide sole source of professional service purchases from July 1, 24 through June 30th, 2025 for specified items based on each purchase recommendation being in the best interest of the city.
Second.
First and second to approve staff's recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Number 18, Design Immunity Ordinance Update. Thank you, Spencer, and happy birthday. Present by Ben Moody. No public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Get the presentation going. All right, so this is a pretty straightforward item. It's really in regards to considering formally documenting authority of approving plans and designs to clearly preserve design immunity that's established under state law for various city projects. And so the government code 830.6, it addresses injuries caused by plans designs. It provides immunity for public entities, employees when plans designs approved by legislative bodies. So that is why when we have a project, one of the reasons we bring it forward to the city council to formally approve the plan specifications and estimate, because it provides that immunity should something come. It puts us in a better position for those lawsuits and defend ourselves. And so recently, the city insurance risk pool that the city participates in, they formally requested that we adopt this language. And part of that reason is to also bring into items or designs that projects that we don't formally bring to the city council. A lot of those are rehab, maintenance in manner. It's often maintenance, emergency, direct negotiation through some sort of sole source. And so with this proposal is that then it would formally establish that and document it. So there's not this loophole to maybe help mitigate and put the city in a better position for potential lawsuits in the future for those contracts. And so with that, I'm recommending conduct a public hearing, then introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Yuba City, adding Chapter 12, Title 6, including 612.01 to the municipal code, establishing powers and authority to approve plans or designs for public works projects and waive the first reading. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions before we do it? No? All right. The public hearing for Design Immunity Ordinance Update is now open. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the council on this issue, please provide your statement via public comment and state your name and address for the record. Do we have any comments from the public on this item? Hearing no further comment, closing the public hearing, bring back the matter to council, and we do have to read the entire thing if you make the action.
Move to accept 18 Design Immunity Ordinance Updates. A, conduct a public hearing, then B, introduce an ordinance to the City Council of the City of Yuba City, adding Chapter 12, Title 6, including Section 6-12.01 to the municipal code, establishing powers and authority to approve plans and designs for public works projects and waive the first reading.
Okay. First and second to approve staff's recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much, Ben. It looks like you're up for number 19 also, 2024 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan.
Okay, so this is our annual consideration of the action plan. And so as you've heard from me before, that the city is an entitlement jurisdiction. Well, I left it open when I printed it. Way to override it. Bear with me here for a second. It doesn't like us. You got it? You go close it. All right. Sierra, thank you. All right, exciting stuff. All right, so a lot going on here. Thank you for the patience with that. So agenda item number 19, CDBG annual action plan. And so with the city being, oh, it does click. With the city being an entitlement jurisdiction, annually we're allocated funding through HUD. And with the purpose for decent housing, suitable living environment, expand economic opportunities, primarily for low and moderate income persons. And so through our CDBG objectives, our annual action plan that we coordinate with HUD with, we look at that for our area for the low, moderate income persons, and then we request applications. And just so for definitions, it changed quite a bit this year, which was interesting. It went from almost 50,000 to 87,000. It's a big deal. It kind of comes into that inflation and HUD updating their amount. So a low income person via HUD is defined as less than 50% of the area median income. The area median income has been updated this year for a household of 4 to be close to $88,000. And then moderate income is less than 80% for that. So qualifying individuals is in that range of family having less than 44,000, and then the moderate 70,000, just for reference. This year annually it's 567,000. So it's been trending. It's been trending down a little bit. You know, we were 650, 630, we were up. And then this last couple of years, we've been around this 560 mark. With that funding, there's some stipulations regarding the maximum percentage for administration, maximum percentage for project for services, and then the remaining for construction projects. So as we worked through that, there were some numbers here for the 20%, 113 cap. With that, we're asking for 110,000 for project administration, which is higher than normal, but there was a little bit of a basis to that. And then we have a call out for this public service. That's usually an area where we receive a lot of applications, and so it's always kind of a pinch point as far as how much funding is available for those types of services. And so the process to get here. It's an annual process, but this year with the dates tweaked a little bit as far as notifications, having a workshop, releasing it to the public, and to pass applicants, and then also reaching out to nonprofits in the area, and then receiving applications and then vetting them, and then we go through a 30-day notice period that we're in right now with finalizing the 30-day notice period, and then conducting a public hearing, and then ultimately sending it to HUD for approval. And so with that, we worked with the mayor and the vice mayor to review the applicants. And this is just kind of a visual of the process. And there's always more applications than funding. And so we received about 1.8 million in applications, with only about that 567 less admin to program. And so where we landed, was program administration, 110,000. And so where that is, that's a little bit heavier than usual, but with that, we're anticipating through that budget is utilizing more staff time to deliver the projects. With the relatively recent retirement of our project manager, there's been kind of a void for delivering some of the small projects at the fire stations, at the bathrooms, at the senior center. Some of these, they're more than maintenance projects, and they have the reporting and funding. There's reporting needs. There's also a lot of prevailing wage and bid documents. And so we're planning to provide more of a staff time to basically deliver that project and then bill it to the program. And then we have the Yuba-Sutter Homeless Consortium, 44,500 for various services to the homeless population. City of Yuba City Patriotic Park playground equipment. ADA sidewalks at $186,000. City of Yuba City 2nd Street camping site, $15,000 for various materials the police department has asked for. Casa de Esperanza, $60,000 towards replacing or rehabbing some of their ADA ramp and some of their issues with their access. And then with Freed, $20,000. We coordinate with them. That's been kind of an ongoing coordination where they help disabled individuals, fix access or different improvements into the home, ADA improvements. And then we have the food bank. And so the food bank, it was a little tricky last year because when HUD came back, they defined, even though it's a food, it's a kind of product as a service. And so they fell into that cap of that $85,000. And so with available funds, less the other projects above, we were able to come in close to $28,000 for the food meals, the pre-made food meals. And then they had a special project related to fixing their delivery truck that was in need for the delivery truck that we found. They were able to, where there was a request for $27,000 to fix that truck and have it on the road. Playseum, they had a range from the minimum to the maximum. We're proposing a $7,700, which was at their minimum. And then the new training day center counseling for $5,000, which was a new applicant. It was from an individual that's has historically ran REST, and they put a pretty good application together. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and the recommendations in the staff report as presented.
We have a public hearing on this, I believe. Public hearing for the 2024 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan is now open. If there are any members of the public who'd like to address the council on the issue, please provide your statement via public comment and state your name and address for the record. Do we have any comments from the public on the item? Looks like we've got one. Hello, Maria.
Do I have to state my name and address and everything, right? Okay, Maria.
You can use the work address if you want.
Okay, so my name is Maria Ball, and I'm the director of the Yuba-Sutter Food Bank. And the food bank is at 760 Stafford Way in Yuba City. I am here tonight with our esteemed board chair, Jackie Silman. And we are here just to thank council and mayor for your consideration for the Yuba-Sutter Food Bank. You know, we're looking at that slide up there about inflation and all the different costs, and the food bank is really feeling it. And we're feeding a lot of people. In fact, we've from the year 2022 to 2023, we've increased the people that we're serving over almost 100%, 80% is where we are. We're serving about 25,000 people each month, and we really appreciate your consideration. That truck needed a new engine, a whole new engine, $28,000. We didn't have it. So we thank you for your consideration tonight. Thank you so much for your support, and we can't do it without you. So thank you very much.
All right. And thank you for all your work. Anybody else care to comment? Nope. All right. Hearing no further comment on the issue, I am closing the public hearing, bringing the matter back to council.
Through the mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution approving the proposed 2024 annual action plan. Authorize staff to submit the required documents to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Am I on the right one? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
It's B.
Urban Development, HUD for processing, and authorize the finance director to add budget appropriations for the grant revenue.
Second.
All right. First and second to approve that aforementioned action. All those in favor say aye.
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 And oppose. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Ben. Appreciate it. Now we're at number 20. There he is. Downtown noise ordinance exception.
Hey, all right. Thank you.
Mayor, council members, good evening. Okay, so the first item, this item before you, the downtown noise ordinance exception. So the purpose of this item is to establish noise regulations for entertainment activities associated with restaurants, bars, or other approved entertainment facilities from 10 p.m. to midnight in our downtown area. So as a little background, staff has heard individual council members express support for developing the downtown area into an entertainment zone in an effort to draw people to the area. And this is currently encouraged today by our Downtown Business Association, or DBA, annual summer winter stroll events and other activities. Now, the current noise regulations limit noise associated with music, large gatherings, or from neighbors. Basically, the quiet hour starts at 10 p.m. under the current noise regulations. And although that is really appropriate for a residential area, if you're trying to encourage any form of nightlife in your downtown area, it presents some challenges. And so the current noise ordinance includes a number of exemptions built into it, and includes everything from emergency response vehicles, parades, legal fireworks displays, also includes activities on publicly owned land, religious activities, railroad activities, solid waste collection, operations at the fair, organized sports event, and the lawful discharge of safe and sane fireworks. So the ordinance that we're bringing forward to you this evening for consideration would apply to properties, and I'm going to show you a map in a slide or two, so just bear with me. Applies to properties that are zoned commercial, C2, or general commercial C3 that front Plumas Street, and I mean the properties that front Plumas Street, between Colusa Avenue or State Highway 20 on the north side, Bridge Street on the south side, and properties also fronting Center Street between Plumas and Shasta. This would extend the current time limit from 10 p.m. to midnight on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays weekly, and then would also add the special days of New Year's, St. Patrick's Day, Cinco de Mayo, the weekends of the DBA's summer and Christmas stroll events, and federal holidays. Now, it would apply to entertainment activities associated with restaurants and bars, as I cited, or other approved entertainment facilities that may include live or amplified music, indoors, or an approved on-site patio, outdoor dining location established consistent with city standards. So the noise is still required to be consistent with the general plan. And so in practice, we see businesses who are within 100 feet of residences would be required to submit a plan to the Development Services Department to show us how they would address noise for their area. The city would reserve the right to require a noise analysis be done either ahead of time or afterwards if we get noise complaints to determine the real noise level out in the area and mitigation that could reduce noise to be consistent with the general plan. So here is a map of the of this area. The colored area represents the boundary of the Downtown Business Association. And I point out, there we go. So on the north side, Colusa Avenue, Highway 20, this is Plumas Street. Down here, Bridge Street on the south, Center Street. And so the green properties reflect the parcels that front Plumas or Center Street. The properties that are highlighted purple are those still within the DBA area, but they don't have land fronting Plumas or Center Street. I think going forward, it's important to realize that this is really a first step in developing our downtown into more of an entertainment area. Our Central City specific plan is 32 years old, and it requires updating. We are anticipating receiving a federal Reconnecting Communities grant through SACOG in the amount of $350,000 that will be allocated to updating the plan. This is going to involve a lot of community outreach to get input from not only individual citizens, but as well as the businesses on how they want to see the downtown area develop for the next 30 years and evolve. And a part of this effort, it would include updated noise analysis applicable to our downtown area. So for public outreach for this item, we did coordinate with the Downtown Business Association. We consulted with them during the preparation of the ordinance, and we also advised them of tonight's meeting at their June 6th board meeting this month. We mailed notice to property owners not only within the DBA area, but within 300 feet around the DBA. We also published a public hearing notice as required in the newspaper. This type of activity, we believe, is exempt from environmental review. We cite the CEQA guidelines code section there because the proposal would be required to be consistent with the general plan noise element. It allows us to make a determination of exemption. So the recommended action, we recommend that the council conduct a public hearing and introduce by title only an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Yuba City promoting business opportunities in our downtown area by amending the municipal code and adopt an exemption under CEQA guidelines section 15061B3 and waive the first reading. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Through the mayor. Mr. Libby, a question that was posed to me earlier today by a citizen here. When you go back and you look at the map of Plumas Street, you've got several of those businesses that have parking lots on the backside. And I just want to be clear because I think I understand the way this is written, but what prevents them from suddenly setting up an outdoor patio as we did during COVID in those back parking lots and putting a band back there, which is closer to, residents? Can you address that and how this would affect that?
Yes, absolutely. I think what's key to remember is if you are within 100 feet of of residences today, you're going to have to come to the Development Services Department with a plan to say, here's where we would like to have some type of entertainment activity. And this is how we plan to address noise. And then we're going to scrutinize that. And if we think that their proposed plan won't meet the test, then we can require that a noise study be completed in order to ensure that the noise level will be maintained.
Okay. And reading it, I thought there was kind of these safety nets in there. Yeah. But again, what was brought to me was the question of what stops them next Saturday night after this passes to just putting the band out in the back parking lot and opening it up for a patio type party. There are provisions that stop that.
Yeah, it is limited to, they have to, on approved locations. So any type of a patio that they want to put up, sometimes what they want to do requires a building permit. They still have to do those type of things and go through the process.
All right. Thank you.
Through the mayor. So this, Mr. Libby, this only triggers when you're within 100 feet of residential, correct?
So the ordinance applies to the properties colored green on the map. Now, if your property is colored green and you're within 100 feet of a residence, then you would have to come get a plan approved from the city. But if you're not within 100 feet, you still need to conduct business consistent with, all the regulations for access and get permits for if you want to have a certain type of facility. But
okay, because where I'm kind of leading towards, because there's a lot of other, I just went to a function at the Harley shop and they had music and such. It didn't go to 10 o'clock, but there's no residential within 100 feet of that shop.
Yeah.
So they just have to submit a permit to do their function. So it's still available to other businesses throughout the community without getting triggered unless they're with 100 feet of residential.
So yeah, I just want to be clear that this particular ordinance is an exemption just for the Plumas Street area, not citywide.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so basically you want to go past 10 o'clock, that's when this kicks in. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Any public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Through the mayor, may we actually just open this as a public hearing?
It's a cost. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much.
So this is a public hearing as well?
Yes, it's been requested by staff.
Okay, sure. We'll open it as a public hearing. Welcome again.
Hi, thank you. My name is Sumiko Sprague. I am a homeowner at 764 Shasta Street. which is directly affected by this ordinance. Can you hear me? A major issue I already have is that the current ordinances aren't even followed. It's pretty consistent when any event happens that the sound prolongs past 10 o'clock. It's been that way for as long as we've been there, which is like 14 years. So at this point, I don't understand how extending it again or to midnight is going to change anything, and what regulations are in place for that to be managed if it's not already being managed already. So, and in addition to that, this is a family community, and I'm not sure, and it's predominantly families. And then we're trying to draw more entertainment, but is the entertainment that's extending from 10 to 12 really what Yuba City is trying to enhance? Are we trying to make this more of a nightlife? I don't think that it's really there, honestly, after living here for so long. I really think that it's more of a family community, and putting any kind of measures in and changing should probably go directly towards enhancing summer stroll or more daytime events, not necessarily extending it to the nightlife that really, I'm not sure if that's really where Yuba City's headed, or that's the goal. So I would like to very much oppose extending anything when we're not even respecting what exists currently. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else care to comment?
It's still on? Okay. Sorry, I have to take off my glasses because I can't read with them. All right. Thank you, Mayor Harris and Council, for allowing me the time to be in front of you tonight. My name is Sandy Drown, and I am a board member of the Yuba City Downtown Business Association. We would like to greatly express our gratitude to the council and city staff for granting us the opportunity to establish this ordinance in harmony with the vision of our organization. Our DBA vision statement characterizes our anticipations to be acknowledged as the premier shopping, dining, and entertainment destination in the region. The DBA wholeheartedly endorses this ordinance and extends sincere appreciation to Dave Shaw and the city council or the city staff for their invaluable contributions, notably Doug Libby, with whom we've had several discussions to collaborate and advance this initiative. And as I know for our strolls, I just wanted to speak from the person before me that spoke. Our strolls end at 9. And I know that I help close down all the strolls. And so at 10 o'clock, there is no music that even happens just because we don't have that opportunity. And this ordinance would give us an opportunity to make that event, especially in the summertime, a little bit later because of the heat, for our community and others to enjoy. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? All right, we'll go ahead and close public hearing, bring it back to council.
Through the mayor.
Yep. We have to read the whole thing under action too.
Yes, sir. I move that we introduce by title only an ordinance of the city council of the city of Yuba City to promote business opportunities in the downtown area by amending section 4-17.2 of chapter 17, title 4 of the Yuba City Municipal Code and adopt an exemption under CEQA guidelines section 15061B3 and waive the first reading.
Second.
First and second to approve recommended action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? It passes. I would add, ma'am, that I'm not sure how you've dug into the issue, the concern you have. If you've talked to the DBA or folks that are maybe the source of the music or the noise, if you have not, I would encourage you to do that. 100 feet notwithstanding, I don't think anybody wants to have any bad feelings. The intent is to provide options and entertainment options for the community and business owners and whatnot. The intent is not to make your life miserable. And we talked about mitigation factors that we're going to be requiring and having people step into. Again, 100 feet or not, it would be worth a conversation because I guarantee no one wants to create problems for you. Okay? Thank you. We'll go on to number 21. Citizens Oversight Committee. You beat me to it. You beat me to it.
We are near the end here. So we have the Citizens Oversight Committee, and the item that we're talking about tonight are tasks, objectives, composition, and member qualifications. So since December of 2022, the City Council has evaluated a potential revenue measure, and we had an ad hoc committee of Mayor Harris and Councilmember Boomgarden that through a process of working with a citizens group came forward last December with a recommendation of a 1% general tax in which funds can be spent on items such as roads and public safety, share a portion of the revenues with Sutter County for services that provide benefit to Yuba City residents, include a citizens oversight committee, and then the measure would be in effect until ended by voters. And so it's important at the July 16th council meeting, this item will be coming before council in terms of the potential of placing a measure on the ballot. And so it's what we wanted to do as we are going around and doing the informational meetings. There's a lot of questions that have come up about the Citizens Oversight Committee. So we wanted to bring forward the structure so that individuals would understand what the intent is. So there's a series of several tasks that would be the responsibility of this committee. So they would review the revenue and expenditures of the funds generated by the measure. They would also review the annual independent financial audit that's prepared for the city and specifically would include these funds as well. They would prepare an independent report for the city council to understand how the funds were budgeted and then spent. They would also act as a citizens oversight committee for funds shared with Sutter County. And then this is the key, is that they would have the retain the authority to submit the committee's annual report to the Sutter County grand jury. This would not require council approval. So if they deemed it necessary that they were concerned with how the money was spent or budgeted, that they could submit their report directly to the grand jury without council authorization. The committee type would be a standing committee. It'd be advisory in nature. There'd be 5 members. They would need to be at least 18 years of age, need to reside in Yuba City or own a business in Yuba City, and must be registered to vote. For appointment, an application would be required. The review committee would be comprised of the mayor, the finance director, the city manager, but ultimately the city council would approve the appointments to this committee. The term for the first round, 2 members would have 2-year terms, 3 members would have 3-year terms, and then every appointment thereafter would be based upon a 3-year term. The meetings, they would be required to participate in at least 2 meetings per year. All meetings would be noticed per the Ralph and Brown Act, and then minutes would be prepared by city staff and would become public record. Funding, these members would not be compensated, so it'd be voluntary in nature. And the other thing is that committee members would be required to file statements of economic interest and then also complete AB 1234 local ethics training upon appointment. The fiscal impact, again, participation is voluntary. There would be staff time to provide information to the committee members. It's intended that the finance department would be the liaison with the committee. Alternatives would be to modify the tasks, objectives, composition, or qualifications, or to delay discussion of this item until after the November 2024 election. Should a measure be successful, at that point in time, council would adopt an ordinance and the creation of the Citizens Oversight Committee would be incorporated into the ordinance. So the tasks would currently be set by resolution. The committee would be created by ordinance. So the recommendation is to adopt a resolution establishing the tasks, objectives, composition, and member qualifications. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or encourage any members of the council on the ad hoc if they wanted to add to this discussion as well. So thank you.
Through the mayor. Thank you, Ms. Langley. I think that at the presentations to the community that I've been involved with, this seems to be extremely consistent and question that comes up is what's the Citizens Oversight Committee? What are they going to do? How often are they going to meet? What is their real power to hold the spending accountable to those items that we have, if passed, that we have designed the revenue measure monies to be spent. So I'm encouraged by the fact, and thank you for getting this done early so that we can begin to at least communicate that to those folks who have a concern over, is the money going to be spent in the way that you say it's going to be spent, which is a key item that I believe we learned from previous sales tax revenue measures in the community. Thank you.
I'd echo the same thing. That's been a common question that we get at these presentations as to how do we know. And so this oversight committee, definitely a key component. Not only is it good business, but it also helps sell the idea and build that built-in level of trust for the folks out there. I had a couple questions presented to me. Would the meetings be public? And like the line item there saying the Brown Act, so I'm assuming it's going to be a public meeting, which is good. Question we were thinking about too when we were discussing this is the 1% will be going into general fund. How are we going to differentiate how are they going to critique the additional money when it's all coming out of the same pot? I don't know if there's going to be an extra process we have to go through to be able to tell which what.
So we would work with finance so that they would go into a specific revenue account.
Okay.
So that they would be set aside separately from other. I mean, we have multiple revenue accounts. This would become another one that the funds go into.
Perfect. That's a good answer. Thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you.
Otherwise, you don't know.
Right.
You can pick and choose and cherry pick your thoughts. Any other nothing, gentlemen? Mike has one. Nothing. All right. Yeah, you do. Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you to our ad hoc committee because you guys have been at this long and hard for a long time. And just like you said, everybody's been asking about this. And the word that comes to mind is accountability, because that's what's been the problem with previous rev measures is where's the accountability piece? And this is huge in this. So I want to say thank you on that. And this just reemphasizes what we just went through. We got to get this citizens oversight established, and we got to get the rev stuff moving. And that's got to be our focus. So I just want to say thanks.
Yeah, sure. All right. Any public comment? Been waiting for you.
My name is Lawrence Mertz. I'm a member resident of Yuba County, Sutter County, excuse me. And I'm curious about the oversight committee. What penalties will they have if they don't follow what the oversight committee determines? Is there going to be any kind of penalty function? Or is it just going to be eyewash where we have an oversight committee, but nothing happens because there's no follow-up on it?
The follow-up would be that they would go to the grand jury. And then, basically it becomes public knowledge that we didn't do what we say we were going to do. And no one wants that to happen. And we certainly don't intend for it to be the case. It's pretty much the extent that I'm aware of, Mr. Yeah.
I take that question a little differently in terms of what if the committee members aren't performing their duties?
Did I misunderstand your question, Larry?
Okay.
Okay. I will admit I didn't quite hear everything, but I think okay. We're good? You have your question answered? Okay, sir.
You want me to take a shot at that?
Yeah.
Two things. I think number one, obviously the grand jury could be, you make the grand jury aware that the money's not being spent. The oversight committee could make a recommendation or pass the information on to the grand jury, but ultimately it's the power of the vote. right? If a council comes up here and starts spending the money in ways that are not in concert with how the money was supposed to be spent, then those are the consequences. I think it's important for people to vote for folks that are going to follow what the intent of these revenues are for, which are roads, public safety, and dealing with the homeless issue. So there's a couple fail safes in there as far as I'm concerned. I know people probably want more, but that's what we can provide at this particular point in time. You're welcome.
Basically, it's a glorified whistleblower.
Can I add one thing, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah. So,
To the mayor, if I could.
it'd be fine. Yes, sir.
And I usually don't jump in on policy sort of items, but I did want to note in many other communities, and what is being proposed here this evening is the Citizens Oversight Committee is basically a watchdog group as to what's going on. But the alternative to that is to have them have control over funds. Many communities, in fact, every community I've been in has said, no, we don't want that because you have unelected people who are not responsible to the electorate starting to control public funds when they're not subject to public review or public control or a public election. So usually the balance between that is you set up a division of powers, just like we have, a separation of powers where you have an independent watchdog group, making sure your publicly elected officials are doing what they're supposed to do. So that's part of the concept in there as well. Thank you.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
One other point, Larry, on this, and she had it up there a second ago. Yep, whoop, there it was. There you go. The Citizens Oversight Committee, because we are going to be sharing the revenues with Sutter County for sheriff and district attorney and stuff is the intent there. The same oversight committee is not only going to look at the city and the 5 people that are sitting here, but it's going to look at the county and how they spent the shared funds and the 5 that sits on their board. So they have a dual purpose. They're not just looking at just what goes to the city. So they're looking at everything.
All right. We need an action, please.
Through the mayor?
Yep.
He's got it.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution to establish the tasks, objectives, composition, and member qualifications for a Citizens Oversight Committee should a potential revenue measure be successful.
Second.
First and second to approve staff recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Any future agenda items from us or comments from the public? Nothing. Reports and communications, beginning with city manager.
Great, thank you. So tomorrow afternoon at the Happy Viking, we have a shop talk. So it's at noon, and we will be doing a presentation related to the revenue measure. June 25th, we have another presentation at the Sutter Yuba Association of Realtors at 9 a.m. June 26th, we are going to be at Waffle Wednesday at the Senior Center at 9:30 a.m. doing a presentation. And then also at the upcoming Yuba-Sutter Fair, starting Thursday night through Sunday, we will be we'll have a booth there next to the police department booth, and we will have council members and department heads there to answer questions. And then also over the next couple of weeks, you will see increased information related to 4th of July fireworks, Safe and Sane, and as we ramp up for that holiday. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Kirchner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since we last met, I attended the Gil-Sizer Board of Directors meeting. We had the adoption of the fiscal year 2024-25 budget with mosquito vector. The personnel committee, which I was on, got together and moved forward, and we approved with the rest of the board. It approved salary of a 4% bump in COLA for their employees. Also passed preliminary budget approval. With Sabufka, ongoing projects are pretty much the same. We did the approval of the amendments to consultant agreements for agency support for fiscal year 24-25. Attended the summer stroll, which was very well attended. It was nice to see folks going out because the weather was very agreeable this year. I was happy to attend the push-in ceremony at Station 4 this year. We have a new piece of equipment that's at the Sites Fire right now. Is that right, City Manager? I did take the opportunity to have a discussion with our fire chief and some of our firefighters that were called out Saturday night to one of the largest fires that I've seen in this community over in Marysville. And it was an eye-opener for me to see what our men and women do on a daily basis, just throwing themselves in harm's way. The video and the pictures that I saw on social media just don't do it justice. These folks were going level to level, room to room in that old building to make sure it was clear. And it's just amazing that we have employees that do that and put their lives in harm's way. So I want to applaud them for doing what they do day in and day out. And with that, I'll conclude my report.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Boomgarden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Participated in several revenue measure information meetings throughout the community. Happy to report that at the ones that I was at anyway, excellent questions, lots of nodding heads. Doesn't mean that everybody's in agreement, but the information is being shared, and I think the outreach efforts are doing good. Attended the Sutter Buttes Flood Control Agency. We have passed their annual budget. Councilperson Pasquale and I met with members of Habitat for Humanity, the Homeless Consortium, the Life Center, somebody else too, Mike, maybe you can help me there, for the Baptist Church property. I think that's kind of been on people's minds. We are working with them, and hopefully we will have an operational plan from them shortly. They have said that they were going to do that. Attended the push-in ceremony for the new wildland engine, which was immediately placed into service to the west of us. All you have to do is look at the smoke column and know they're probably busy. Attended a senior commission meeting. Thank you all. I think there's a big bingo thing or something coming up, but I'm not sure John will have that going, but Waffle Wednesdays and everything else. Was able to staff a booth at the summer stroll for the revenue measure as well. A lot of people looking at the posters, as you might imagine. This probably wasn't high on their list of things to come over and chit chat about a sales tax measure, but we were there, and I know that the vice mayor and Councilperson Kirchner was there as well. Want to again to our firefighters that placed themselves in Marysville to assist Marysville Fire during the Hotel Marysville, which I think if we went back through records, I think probably at least the third or fourth time that Yuba City firefighters have been inside that building. It does not appear that building at this particular point in time is going to be able to exist any longer. We'll have to wait and see what the engineers' reports are. And just, more on a kind of a regional thing. Those of you who are baseball fans will be disappointed to hear that Willie Mays passed today. And that guy was kind of a guy that was important to a lot of us who paid attention to San Francisco Giants baseball. So maybe we can close a little bit in memory of him. I know that's not necessarily the most protocol thing, but the man did have an impact. Thank you.
Councilmember Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. As been discussed in previous reports, Stroll was really well attended. I think it's starting to gain momentum. And we had several conversations about the revenue. And then the final question was, where do you live? And they weren't even in the community, but we had a good conversation. Push-in was always a treat to do. I'm probably going to embarrass my nephew. He was with me. My nephew's here. He's serving our country, and he's being relocated to Fort Irwin. He attended with me to the push-in. Ad hoc committee at Habitat, I think Councilman Baumgartner and I were both very clear of what our expectations were for that. And the Lieutenant Brazil gave a very succinct explanation of what the expectations of the police department is as well. Went to the Hispanic Advancement Scholarship Dinner last week. Very, very well attended. They gave out, I would say, approximately 15 to 18 scholarships to the young people moving on with their education. A lot of moving stories. Judge Santana gave the keynote speak. He was the keynote speaker and talked about perseverance and hard work and all of those things. I think he was kind of preaching to the choir because these kids were all very dedicated in what they did. And what I was really impressed with is the fact that the Hispanic community is even giving out scholarships to non-Hispanic children. It's really need-based, and if you bring them a story and a need, they step up, and I commend them for that. And with that, I conclude my report.
All right, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Attended a few things. I was tied up with continuing education in my profession during the last couple of weeks, but did go to the stroll, and we worked the booth in the afternoon, and people came by and talked. I think if we'd have had food and drinks, we probably would have got more people in there. So mental note, next time serve margaritas, that might get them in there. But it was a good reception. People seemed inquisitive as far as what's going on. Really no negative pushback. People are ready to see the roads fixed in our city and more money put into public safety. Want to thank our Yuba City Police Department for helping us at the stroll get all set up and get us going. We got there and was missing a few things. The next thing I know, they start pulling out tables and stuff. So Chief, thank you to you and your team. And it was a joy to hang out not only with my colleague, but with Petey, and right next to us was FD, and it was a great afternoon. So I really appreciate that. And thank you, Ms. Langley, for coming to our rescue and bringing us all the stuff that we needed. So thank you to you and Matt. And I just want to say thank you to our fire department and Chief Alexander. It was an honor for me to be able to say the blessing over the new engine. And as I've said it many, many times, I respect you and your entire team in a way that words can, it's hard to express because of the job that you do, because every time those alarms go off, you're really doing things like you did over in Marysville, where you're going into very dangerous situations that, it could be a very bad situation. So I just want to say thank you. And it was my honor to be a part of that. The next couple of weeks are going to be real busy. As the mayor and I have a lot of meetings coming up on the Sikh Festival and Parade, and we've got some ad hoc meetings and such coming up. So that will be forthcoming. And the last thing is the RWMA. We are moving forward with the recruitment process. So we had a timeline come through today that we're looking, and the goal right now is, if it can be pulled off, is to try to have a new executive director in the fall. So we're looking probably the October, November timeframe. So we are daily working on that. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, sir.
All right. One of the bad things about going last is everybody steals your thunder because we all attend so many things. But I'll reiterate what Councilmember Bloomgarden said about the revenue major presentations. We've had a lot of good participation, a lot of good, well thought out questions and reception to our answers, and I think it's going quite well. And this is, I think, one of the biggest public outreach efforts we've made as a city, and I can definitely think it's paying off and going very well. I attended the River Valley High School graduation, which was very good. It was the weather cooperated. As Councilmember Kirchner said, Gil Sizer, we approved the annual budget. Did a ribbon cutting for a new business, Clover Beauty Supply, which is on Plumas Street between AM/PM and the Baptist Church. They're tucked in there in that little strip mall, and they seem to be doing really well, very well appointed, and a lot of amenities and services they provide there. It's nice to meet the owner. Her name is Catherine. Summer Stroll, as already stated, of course, was very good attendance and very good and community event. It's always a pleasure to be a part of that. The push-in ceremony, once again, was wonderful to see. It's nice to see the continuation of traditions the fire departments have done for years and years, back when they literally had to push the horse-drawn stuff into the garage. But a sense of camaraderie and pride and tradition for our fire department, reminder to them of the responsibility that they have and our commitment to public safety as a council. It's just bright, literally shining example of that effort. And it was very nice to be a part of that historic moment. And then, of course, it immediately gets put into use. So, and I learned a lot of details about that particular vehicle that I didn't quite know before. And there's a lot of things featured in that specific type of vehicle that's going to be really good for our folks and keep them safe and actually more efficient. I did some interviews for our personnel board. I still have one left to do. And as always, spoke and met with a lot of very good people, all of whom would do a good job in that role. So it's I got a decision to make there, but it went well and things are progressing there. I think we have youth commission interviews, a set of those coming up sometime soon too. So other than that, there's nothing more, and we will close in remembrance of Mr. Willie Mays. Thank you very much.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Hi, I'm Neil Goforth of Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties. Caring for elders or even yourself has challenges. Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties can help you address today's issues and plan for tomorrow with in-home and specialized care for you or your family members. Call us at 530-749-8800. Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties.